Do you like phrasal verbs? Yeah, I didn't think so. Phrasal verbs are a problem, but in this video, I'm going to solve it for you. Hi and welcome to Teacher Phil, where I help people like you pass the Cambridge exam. Let me tell you, if I had €1 for each time one of my students complained about phrasal verbs, I would probably be a millionaire. They are, without a doubt, one of the most annoying parts of studying English. And yet, you have no choice but to study them because, especially in Cambridge exams, they are super important. So in this series, we are going to have a look at phrasal verbs, and we are going to start with the basics. After watching this video, you will feel more confident about what phrasal verbs are and how they work, so that in the future, you will be able to learn them much faster and use them with more confidence. The general level of this series is going to be at B2. But even if your level is higher, like C1, or even a little bit lower, like in B1, you can definitely benefit from these videos. Sounds good to you? Yeah, that's what I thought. In short, phrasal verbs are verbs that are made of a verb and a particle. For example, look up, work out, or get on with something. Particles can sometimes be longer than just one word, like in get on with something, but most of the time they are made of prepositions or adverbs that you already know anyway. We can combine them in a lot of ways and create different phrasal verbs. Each one has a unique meaning, which brings us to the next point. To understand phrasal verbs better, there are two things you need to become familiar with. First of all, each phrasal verb has a very specific meaning, and if you change the particle, the phrasal verb changes, and with that, its meaning as well. For example, the phrasal verb break in means to enter illegally, like in this sentence here. However, if we change the particle to, let's say, up, we create the phrasal verb break up, which means to separate, like in this sentence here. You see that by simply changing the particle, we've created a new phrasal verb with a completely different meaning. Secondly, phrasal verbs have different grammatical patterns. We can break them up into 3 different categories. Some phrasal verbs are used alone, without an object. For example, get up or eat out, like in these sentences. Some phrasal verbs use an object which always comes after the phrasal verb. For example, look after someone or something, or get in. Look at these sentences for a couple of examples. Last but not least, some phrasal verbs use an object that can separate the phrasal verb. For example, drop off something or someone, or cross out something. Again, here are some examples for you. So remember, phrasal verbs can either have no object, they might have an object that always comes after the verb, or they can use an object that can separate the verb and the particle. The third thing we need to keep in mind is that some phrasal verb can have multiple meanings that often come from the most basic meaning of the verb. For example, take out means to remove something from somewhere, as in this sentence here. This meaning is quite literal, but it's not the only meaning. Take out can also mean to borrow, like in this sentence here. Here we could say that she removed the books from the library, but of course, she will return them at some point. To give you another one, take out can also mean to go somewhere with someone and to pay for them, as in this sentence here. Here we could almost say that she removed her partner from the house to go to a restaurant with them to have dinner. So remember, sometimes phrasal verbs can have multiple meanings that are always related to the most basic meaning, but they are slightly different. The last thing you should keep in mind is that phrasal verbs are typically a feature of informal language, which means that we typically use them in spoken interaction or in informal writing, like an email to a friend, for example. Typically, there is a more formal meaning for each phrasal verb. So if, for example, in Cambridge B2 First, you need to write a formal text, like an essay or report, you might want to use these more formal meanings instead of the phrasal verb. For example, a phrasal verb like catch up with someone means to meet someone. So in a more formal context, rather use meet instead of catch up with. Similarly, the phrasal verb hang out with someone means to spend time with someone. Again, if you work in a more formal context, for example in an essay, use the more formal meaning. Spend time with someone instead of hang out with someone. To help you out a little bit, I've created a free PDF for you with a bunch of phrasal verbs and their more formal meanings. You can get it for free without having to give me your email address or entering any personal information. You can click the link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen. Thank you for watching the video until the end. I hope that phrasal verbs are now a little bit less scary for you. When you see a new phrasal verb, always write it down and check in a dictionary the meaning as well as the grammatical pattern of the phrasal verb. This way, you can avoid mistakes and improve your vocabulary, which can help you in your Cambridge exam. If you want, I can also be your teacher. I offer online classes and writing feedback. And you can also follow me on my other social media to get even more of my content. All the links, of course, are in the description box below. And I see you in the next video.